You could be stressing about your finances. Maybe there's a problem there. There's more month than there is money at the end of it here right now. Maybe there's stress about your health. Maybe you're going through something physically in your body and you kind of got stress about that. You're worried about it. Maybe it's your career. Maybe you're not sure what's going to happen. You're going to have a job next week or 6 months from now, or what's going to happen with your career and where are you going to end up and how are you going to take care of your family and pay all the bills that you have to pay. And the reality is, and all of us know this, that all of us deal with stress and we all get stressed out from time to time. All of us here. Now, we're all very good-looking people in this building this morning. We're handsome men and we're gorgeous ladies. We've all come together. There's so much beauty in this room. It's just unbelievable today. If you could stand up here and see it all and see everything I see. And we all look like we've got it together. Our hair is in place and our clothes are just right. And, the guys got their shoes shined just right. The ladies got the right jewelry on with the outfit. Everything looks good. But the reality is all of us deal with stress from time to time. Pastors deal with stress. I was running around here this morning trying to find something that wasn't going on that needed to be going on. I was getting a little stressed out. I shoved a few people that I'm really close to, just kind of shoved them out of my way. Didn't even say, I'm sorry, just get out of my way. I got to get this done. The musicians, they deal with stress as they play pianos and guitars and other instruments. They get stressed sometimes. Sometimes the singers get stressed. Are we going to hit that note? Can we hit that note? Are we got the right time? And God bless every sound engineer in every church that's ever been around. Many times our sound engineer gets stressed out. We all deal with stress, and yet we look so nice and so calm on the outside. In fact, right now, I want you to turn to the person on your right or on your left and just tell them, you look stressless this morning. And see, the reality is you don't know what they're dealing with. You don't know what they've been through this week or what's happened in their life or what the last 6 weeks has been like. And in fact, some of you came to church this morning barely because your day started out like the family you're going to watch on the screen this morning. Take a look at this family. See if you can relate to anything that happens in this little story. So maybe your day started like that this morning. How many can relate to something kind of sort of like that, especially if you have small children trying to get them ready? Well, believe it or not, the Bible has a lot to say about stress. And in fact, there's a very famous scripture that deals about stress where Jesus talks about how we can trust Him more and we can have less stress in our life. And it's found in Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 and 29. It's in your bulletin, but it's also going to be on the screen this morning. You can follow along if you'd like. Jesus said these words, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." If you are stressed out today, Jesus says you can come to Him and He will give you rest. Now notice in those words that Jesus just spoke, He does not promise you a stress-free life. Nowhere in the Bible does it ever say that if you come to me, I will give you a stress-free, worry-free life. There is only one place to find people who have no stress whatsoever in their lives, and that is in the cemetery. They don't have any stress in their lives. That's the only place you can go. All of us here this morning, no matter how nice we look or how well-groomed we are, how much it looks like we have everything together, all of us here have some kind of stress in our lives. And so Jesus doesn't say you'll never have stress and you'll never have another worry in your life. In fact, life will wear you out sometimes. And life will just stress you out sometimes. But Jesus says that if you will trust in Him with all of your life, that you can find peace in this life. If you trust in Him with all of your life, that in this life on this earth, you can find peace. And let me tell you this morning as we begin this new series, which will go for probably another 4 or possibly even 5 weeks, that it is not unchristian to be stressed out. It doesn't mean you're any less of a Christian. It doesn't mean that you're not close to God because there's a lot of stress in your life. It doesn't mean that God has forsaken you. It's not unchristian to have stress in your life. In fact, the great apostle of the New Testament, the Apostle Paul, found himself in many stressful situations, and he writes about one of them in 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 5, and he says this, "For when we came into Macedonia, we had no rest, but we were harassed at every turn, conflicts on the outside, fears within. And I wonder how many times we've been in situations like that. You know, the days that you dread to go to work because of all the conflict that's going on in that workplace, and we call it drama sometimes. There's just so much drama in my workplace. There's just so much drama with my coworkers, and you dread when the clock goes off. You dread even getting out of bed and getting dressed to go to work. Some of you dread going home when you get off of work because you know there's conflict at home. There's going to be a fight with the wife or a fight with the kids or a fight with whatever and whatever's going on. There's always conflict going on at home. And some of you are here this morning, you're already making plans to go away for the holidays. You're going to go back home for Thanksgiving. You're going to go back home for Christmas. And you're already dreading the holidays because you know of all the conflict, all the fights, all the disagreements that have gone on for years and years and years, and you're just dreading going back home because of all that conflict. So for whatever it is for you, I want you to know today that we all feel that way sometimes. We all feel dread. We all feel like I don't want to do that. We all feel like we're stretched to our very limits. And it is those external circumstances that take a toll on us on the inside. And that is what stress is. And that's what the Apostle Paul says. He says there was fear on the inside of me. Why? Because of stress, because of the outward circumstances. There was fear on the inside of me because of the uncertainty that was going on around me. And as I talk to more and more people, it seems like I find more people who are stressed about the future. Almost everyone you talk to is stressed about the economy. They're worried about their jobs. They're worried about, can I afford to pay the bills? They're worried about, am I going to have to take a pay cut to make it through so the company can stay open? We're all worried about the economy. A lot of you this morning are worried about your children. Some of you had children who are still at home, and others of you had children who were grown, and they even have kids of their own now. But you're worried about them. You're concerned about them because of what's going on in their lives. We're worried about our jobs. We're worried about the price of gas. I got my smartphone a few weeks ago and downloaded a gas app on there, and it tells me where the cheapest gas in the area is. And so every time I go to get gas, I hit that app on my smartphone, and I drive. I don't care how far it is. I want to get the best deal I can. And so I waste money driving all the way across town to get the cheap gas, but I'm worried about that. And I fill up whenever I can because tomorrow it may be 60 cents higher than it is today. And I'm worried about gas. Isn't it sad? I filled my wife's car up a few weeks ago, and I put on my Facebook account, just filled my wife's car up, cost me $54. The irony of that is my very first car payment I had when I was in high school was $54. It cost me as much to fill her car up as my first car payment was. It's unbelievable, and I worry about that from time to time. All of us, unless we've been in a bubble somewhere or don't have TV or don't listen to the news at all, many of us are worried about the Middle East, what's going on over there right now. We see our ambassadors being killed. We see our Marines being killed. We see other Americans being captured and tortured and killed. And we worry about what's going on in the Middle East. Some of you are worried about the presidential election. Is Obama going to get reelected? Is Romney going to get elected? Doesn't matter if either one of them gets elected. And we're worried about those things. Some people are worried about nuclear weapons. And the list can go on and on and on. It is almost an endless list of the things that we are worried about, concerned about, and even stressed about. Well, what is it about the future that stresses us out? I believe it is because it is unknown. It's uncertain. We don't really know what's going to happen. And so how do we move from being stressed completely out to where we are stressed less? Well, when you feel stressed about the future this morning, there's several things that you have to do. And I'm going to give you 4 steps today that all of us need to apply to our lives to help us feel less stress as we look at our future and as we move into our future. Here's the first thing I have to do, you have to do, is we want to have less stress in our lives as we look at our future. So first thing is this: remember God's faithfulness in my past. If I want to have less stress moving into the future, I have to remember God's faithfulness in my past. If stressing you out looking towards your future, if that just tears you up on the inside, then you may need to take a look back at your past. In the Old Testament, God repeatedly told his people to remember. In fact, he tells them to remember something about 31 times in the Old Testament. He tells them to remember, Remember how it was. Remember what I did. Remember how I got you out of that situation. Remember how I answered your prayer. 31 times or more, he tells them to remember. And many times in the Old Testament, when God did some great thing in the lives of the Israelites, he would tell them to remember it, and they would build an altar out of stone so that they could remember what God had done. Well, I'm going to ask Pastor Robbie to come. This is our youth pastor, in case you don't know him. And he's going to do something for us this morning as I slide this little cart out here. If you can't see it, they'll get the camera on it this morning. He's going to build us an altar out of stone this morning. These are the stones from the fire pit. So if you fire pit guys are looking for some of your stones, they're up here this morning being made into an altar. And so God would do something great in the lives of the Israelites. And they would say, we must remember what God has done for us. There's got to be some kind of memorial, something we can look back at. And truth is, all of us have things in our lives that we look at to remember something we've done, something we have accomplished, or some type of award we've gotten. I sat in my office this morning, I looked up over my bookcase, and there hanging above my bookcase were all kinds of plaques that I've been given over the years as a minister and a pastor. Now, I didn't do anything specifically to earn these things, but these were just things that people gave me because they thought I deserved it. Thank you for being a pastor. Thank you for being our shepherd. Thank you for pastoring our church for X amount of years. And I hung these things up as a reminder of the churches and the places I'd been throughout my ministry. Some of you have children and you still have yourself trophies that you got because you played rec basketball or rec league baseball, or maybe your school won a championship and you got a championship ring and you show it off everywhere you go. It's just to remind you what you did, what you accomplished, and what happened back there. And so many times in the Old Testament, God would tell them to build me an altar so you can remember what I've done for you. And I wonder this morning how many of us have an altar in our lives somewhere that reminds us of what God has done for us in the past. You see, it's not enough that your mother has an altar to remind her of what God's done. You need your own altar in your life. It's not enough that you had a praying grandmother who could really get a hold of God and get a prayer through, as we say sometimes. You need to have a place where you can go and remember what God has done for you in your own life. And say, yeah, back in September 2012, God answered a prayer on a Sunday morning for me, and I want to lock that away somewhere in my memory bank. I want to write that down in a journal or a piece of paper. I want to put that on a document on my PC or my Mac, and I want to save it. And when things get bad and things start going downhill in my life, I want to look back to that Sunday, and I want to see what God did. And so the children of Israel built altars everywhere they went. God did something great for them. And they would just take that altar and they would build it, they would set it there. And so say they built an altar on Sunday, and 6 weeks later as their life began to fall apart and things were bad, all they had to do was look back and remember what God had done for them. That's all they had to do, because they built altars, they built memorials everywhere they went to constantly remind them of what God had done in their lives. And the problem many of us have is we don't build the altar, we don't build the memorial, we don't write anything down, we don't remember anything. And so when we get stressed out and life caves in on top of us, we have nothing to look back on. But they would look back as a visible reminder of what God had did for them in their past. And you know what that did? It lowered their stress level down. It said to them, if God did it back then God could still do it today. And if God can do that today, like he did back then he can do that today and also in my future. What am I afraid of? What I'm worried about? Why am I losing sleep? Why do I have ulcers? Because I can look back and see the hand of God in my life for many, many years. And so it would begin to lower their stress level down. Now, all of us here today, regardless of our age, need to build some kind of altar in our lives. Not necessarily an altar of stone or wood, but we need to keep a record of what God has done in our past so that we can go back and recall the blessings of God and allow that to bring down our stress level about our future. You see, God has been faithful to you in your past, and he will be faithful to you in your future as well. It may not be a stress-free future. It may not be a pain-free future. It may not be a worry-free future, but God will be faithful. And as I look back to my past and I see the faithfulness of God, it encourages me to go on into my future. I love an old hymn we sing from time to time. It's simply called count your blessings. Count your blessings. And the old words say this: when upon life's billows you're a tempest tossed, when you are discouraged thinking all is lost, count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. Then the writer says, so amid the conflict, whether great or small, do not be discouraged. Why? Because God is over all. Count your many blessings. Angels will attend, help and comfort give you to your journey's end. And the chorus simply says, count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God hath done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God has done. I want to encourage you this morning. If you're going through a time in your life and you're worried about your future and you're stressed out about what's happening in your life right now, I want you to look back at some time in your life where God has answered a prayer, where God has done the miraculous, where God has done the supernatural, where only God could have done it. I want you to look back at that and count that blessing, and that will encourage you as you go forward into your future. So whenever you feel fear, the first step is to look back, see what God has done, and count your blessings. Here's the second step that we have to take. We must identify the specific source of my stress. I've looked back now. I've seen what God has done in my life. I've got that part. I believe He can help me. But now I need to identify the specific part of my source, or the source of my stress. What is it that is specifically causing you to be stressed? How many has ever felt bad before physically, and your husband or wife will ask you, what hurts on you? And you're not sure what hurts on you. You just know you don't feel good. And you say this, everything hurts on me. I can't pinpoint it. It's just everything. As they were rolling through the slideshow this morning during the offering time, showing us working in the field yesterday, my answer, what hurts on me this morning, Reggie? Everything hurts on me this morning. My hands hurt, my elbows hurt, my toes hurt, my knees hurt. Everything on me hurts today. I really can't pinpoint that. But when it comes to stress, we can't give that answer, everything, because some of us have answered the question that way. When your wife says, what's wrong with you today? What are you stressed out about? Or your child says, what are you stressed out about, Mom? What are you stressed out about, Dad? And you give that answer, I'm stressed out about everything. Everything has me stressed right now. Well, actually, it's not everything, although we feel like it is everything that has us stressed out from time to time. But if we will usually dig a little deeper into what's going on in our lives, we can find out that it's not everything, but we can pinpoint what it is. Maybe what's got you stressed out and you dreading going to work tomorrow morning is that one difficult person that you work with. Maybe they just stress you out and they just make your life miserable. And you don't want to go to work tomorrow because you know he or she is going to be there. Or maybe as you dig into a little bit deeper, you see that it's a relationship that you're involved in right now, and that relationship is not going the way you want it to go. And that relationship is what has you stressed out. Maybe you dig a little bit deeper, you realize it's not everything that has me stressed out, but it's that unexpected bill that came in the mail this past week that I wasn't planning on. And that bill has me stressed out right now. It's not everything, but it's one specific thing that has me stressed out and stretched. And so we need to get behind the cloud of everything and find the specific. What is it specifically that has you stressed out? And somehow when you begin to name it, somehow when you identify it, when you call it out for what it is, your stress level now, you can begin to deal with it because now it begins to lower. It's not everything in my life that stress me out. It is this in my life that has me stressed out. You see, I can't deal with everything in my life at one time, but I can take it one thing at a time, and with God's help, I can deal with it one thing at a time and allow Him to help me with my stress level. And so over the next few weeks, we're going to try to help you identify the specific things in your life that are stressing you out and try to help you deal with those things in your life. And I want you to know this morning that there's also good stress and there's bad stress. Good stress and bad stress. The good stress is the stuff that God allows to come into your life that helps you to grow and mature as a Christian and to become more like He is. Or good stress can be the good decisions you make in your own life that help you grow and mature and to become more like Christ. And here are some examples that I can think of just in our congregation of good stress. We have women's life groups in our church. And all the ladies in our church who want to be a part of this are assigned to a group, and they have a leader, and they meet, and they have Bible studies, and they have prayer times, and they have activities that they get involved in. And some of you ladies sitting here this morning have decided that you will actively be involved in your life group. And so what does that mean? It means that you will leave work on time. It means that you will rearrange your schedule to be at that meeting. But you know what that is? That is good stress. Why? Because it makes you more like Jesus. It's good stress. And others of you attend our Wednesday night Bible studies. In fact, some of you made a commitment about, 8 months ago when New Year's was rolling around. And you said, I'm going to go be at every Wednesday night Bible study for the rest of for the new year. I'm going to make it every Wednesday night. And I wonder how you're making out with that commitment. But you know what some of you have done? You said, I'm going to be there every Wednesday night. Because if I'm there, it's going to make me more like Jesus. I'm going to learn the Word. I'm going to know what He needs me to do. I'm going to know what I need to change in my life. I'm going to be there. And so you leave work, and you rush, and you grab something quick to eat, and you throw the kids in the car, and you rush to church, and you may just barely get here by 7 o'clock, but you're here every Wednesday night right at 7 o'clock. You know what that is? It is good stress. Why? Because you know that's going to make me more like Jesus. Good stress. Some of you have joined the choir for Christmas. Why? Well, you like to sing, you want to be a part of it, but you know what that choir is? It's its own little small group all by itself. And they pray for each other, and they worship together, and they love each other, and they encourage each other. And you know what they said? I'll be back at this building at 2:30 on a Sunday afternoon. I'll rush out of here if the preacher ever shuts up, and I'll rush down and grab a hamburger, and I'll rush back up to the church building, and I'll stay there for an hour and a half, and I'll learn my part, and I'll sing the best I can. Why? It's good stress. That's good stress. And all of us need good stress in our lives. But as we think about good stress, Harvest Ministries has many other ways to add good stress to your life. I want to speak to you this morning who know that you haven't been attending church as regular as you should. Maybe it's time to add some good stress to your life. Maybe you haven't been involved in church as much as you know you should be involved. Why not decide today, I'm going to add some good stress into my life? God, I got enough bad stress. Why not put some good stress in there? I've got enough terrible things going in my life. Why not add some good things into my life that can actually help me grow, mature, and be more like Jesus is? So here's something you can do if you don't attend church regularly or as much as you should. Why not make a decision today on the first Sunday of this series that you will be here and attend every Sunday morning as much as possible throughout the rest of this series with God's help. And just tell God, God, if you'll rearrange my schedule, God, if you'll work something out, God, if this is where I need to be, you help me see it, you help rearrange everything, and God, I will be there every week possible throughout this series. Why? Because I want to add some good stress to my life. Because here's the thing. If you don't have enough good stress in your life, you will eventually fall into distress or bad stress. If you're not putting enough good stress in your life, you'll eventually fall into bad stress, which leads to distress. And what is bad stress? It's when something happens in your life as a result of doing something that is not God's will for your life. And know this, that in those moments of distress, God has not left you. In fact, God will grow you through that distress in your life, just like He will grow you through good stress. But here's a very important principle that you need to know. You may want to write it down. If you have enough good stress in your life, you can minimize the distress in your life. I need to say that again. If you have enough good stress in your life, you can minimize the distress in your life. You need to add some more good stress. And some of you sitting here, listen to me this morning, know that I need to add more good stress into my life. I need to be involved and be plugged into things that make me more like Jesus. That's what I need in my life. Well, here's the third step you have to do. I have to stick to what I know is right. I've got to stick to what I know is right. How many know that stress can cloud your decision-making ability? And all of us at some point in time have made a bad decision under stress. I thought about this today as I was getting ready to come over to the church from my office. And I thought about as a 18-year-old in Bible college in Tennessee. And if you've been around me, you know anything about me, I love watches. I know watches are a thing of the past now. Everybody's got this cell phones, they look at the clock. I love watches. I don't love expensive watches, but I love watches. I don't love cheap watches that look nice. That's what I like. I don't spend a lot of money for a watch, but I like them to look nice, and you think they're expensive, but they're not expensive. I got to take you to Walmart and show you where I buy them all at. I had this watch I really loved in college. It was a nice watch. It looked nice. People look at my watch and say, well, that's a nice watch. Where'd you get it at? How much you pay for it? All that stuff. Poor as dirt, but it had a nice looking watch. And that thing would stop working all the time. I put battery after battery after battery after battery in that watch. On my Bible college income, which wasn't much, working in the library, buying new books together. And I got so mad at my watch one day. Sitting in the girls' dorm in their lobby where everybody congregated at. And my watch stopped working. I just put a battery in that thing. I walked outside, took my watch off, looked at it and said, I hate you, watch. And I threw it as far as I could to the field. And I walked back inside and sat on the couch. About a half hour later, I thought that was a pretty stupid thing to do. Because it's the only watch I had. And it worked some of the time, but not all the time. And so I went out into the field looking for my watch. And I searched in the field, and I looked in the grass, and I looked everywhere I could look. And I never found that watch as long as I attended Bible college there. I could never find it again. You know what happens when you make a bad decision under stress? You end up regretting it later. Always. Some of you men who like to work on equipment and try to fix things, when that, whatever it is, doesn't work, and you grab the hammer, and so I'm going to fix this thing or die, and you beat the fire out of that thing with that hammer, and it tears that equipment all the pieces, and it still doesn't work, that's a bad decision. It's bad. Or maybe you're a lady here and you're trying to get ready for a big party or big night out on the town or whatever it is, and you don't have the right dress, you don't have the right shoes, you don't have the right jewelry to go with it, and you run to the mall and you say to yourself, I don't care how much I have to pay for these shoes. I don't care how much the dress costs. I just need it. And then 30 days later from the date of your purchase, the credit card statement comes in. And you look at the credit card statement and you say, man, I can't believe I paid that much for those shoes or for that dress or for that ring or for whatever it is. You make a decision under stress, and then when things kind of settle down, you regret it. We must be careful not to make big decisions when you're under stress. Don't make a relationship decision when you're under stress. Don't try to make a decision about your career when you're under stress. You will make a bad choice, and you will end up regretting it. And did you know this, that people who are under stress are more likely to engage in unhealthy behaviors and activities? Someone who's under stress, who may drink a little bit, if they get under enough stress, that turns from a small social drink, it turns into an excessive, abusive kind of drinking. Someone who smokes maybe 1 or 2 cigarettes a day, when they get under a lot of stress, they may start smoking 2 or 3 packs of cigarettes a day because of all the stress. People who get under stress, if you're like me, when I get under a lot of stress, I like to eat when I'm under stress. It makes me feel good. And I make bad nutritional choices when I'm under stress. And I'll eat whatever it is I want to eat because it makes me feel good at the moment. And so it drives me to make bad behavioral choices in my life. And then what does that do? The person who ends up drinking too much realizes I'm drinking too much and now I have a problem. The person who smokes 2 packs or 3 packs of cigarettes a day realizes, I need to stop this because I'm going to have lung cancer if I'm not careful. The person who's like me, who eats under stress, realizes that my clothes are getting tighter and tighter the more stress I get under, and it's a bad choice I'm making right now. But it leads to bad decisions, and we end up regretting those things later. Here are some real-life examples that I've seen as a pastor over the last almost 25 years now. I see a young couple who gets married. How many know that getting married is one of the most stressful things you can do in your life? I got one honest person running the camera back there. Ranks at almost the most stressful event that takes place in your life is getting married. Why? Because you're bringing 2 different people together. And they got to learn to live together, and she sleeps on what used to be your side of the bed. Now that's her side of the bed. And she don't squeeze the toothpaste like you squeeze the toothpaste. And you can't leave your clothes on the floor, guys, like you used to leave your clothes on. Everything changes. You're talking about stress. That is stress. But you take a young couple, they get married, and they're starting this new life together, and they're in church, and they've gone through counseling, and they've attended church. And then something happens in that relationship, and there's full of stress, and there's arguing, and there's fighting. And they decide, we need to spend more time working on our relationship. He works, she works, there's stress, we're fighting all the time. And the only day we can work on our relationship is Sunday. So here's what we're going to do. We're so stressed out and we're so worried about our relationship, and we're going to try to make our marriage work and be successful. We're going to stop going to church on Sundays, and we're going to spend Sunday working on our relationship. Think I'm kidding? I see it happen all the time. Or perhaps there's somebody who gets a promotion at their job. They have a new workload on top of them. Before they got that promotion, they got up every morning. They spent time in prayer. They spent some time reading the Word of God. They spent some time alone with God. But now with this new workload, with this new responsibility, they have so much more work to do. They have to get out of the house. They get up earlier. They don't spend any time praying or talking to God at all now, and they rush out of the door. Or maybe it's a person who's in a bad relationship, or somebody who's in a financial trouble. And instead of continuing to go to men's small group or going to women's life groups or going to the youth group, they decide they're going to pull away from all those groups and all that support system, and I'm going to figure this out on my own. I'm going to figure out this relationship. I'm going to figure out my finances. I'm going to figure out what I should do about this relationship. And in every one of those cases, those people pull away from the very thing that can help them during that time of stress. See, the sad part is most all of us in this room have pulled away from people who could help us at some time or another. We've retreated and we've digressed and we've gone into our little corner of the world and say, I will deal with this. I don't need anybody else's help. I don't need anybody else's input. I will try to handle this on my own. But the best thing a couple can do who's having stress in their marriage is to do what? Is to go to church together. Listen, if you're in a bad relationship and you're having trouble and you're fighting and feuding all the time, the best place you can be is in the house of God together. If you just got a promotion and now you're the supervisor or you're the executive or you're the manager and you have so much to do every day, you don't know how you're going to get it done, the best thing you can do is to start your day with prayer so that you can get the power of God in your life to help you make it through that day. Or maybe you're the person in the bad relationship or the financial stress. The best thing you can do is to continue to surround yourself with people who love you and care about you and who will pray for you during that time. See, we have to make sure, even when we're stressed out, even when life seems to be falling apart, that we continue to do what is right. Because only when we do what is right do we get the power of God in our life. And that's what Peter talks about in 1 Peter 3:12. He says, the eyes of the Lord watch over those who do right, and his ears are open to their prayers. In other words, if you do right, you get God's power. That's what that scripture means. If you do right, you get God's power in your life. But the Lord turns his face. That's a bad thing. Whenever you see that in the Bible, that's a bad thing. The Lord turns his face. But the Lord turns his face against those who do evil. If you start doing wrong, you'll fall into a vicious cycle. And you not only hurt yourself, but you will miss out on God. And it really comes down to an issue of trust. Who are you trusting during times of stress? Which brings me to my last step this morning. I must trust God completely with my future. I must trust God completely with my future. Think of stress as a warning light. Think of stress as the air pressure light that comes on in your car, the oil light that comes on in your car, the engine light that flashes in your car. It is a warning light. Stress tells us that something is out of whack. It also tells us that we have some misplaced trust somewhere. See, if you're feeling stressed out about your finances, then maybe it's because you've got your trust in the wrong place. If you're feeling stressed out about your career, maybe it's because you've got your trust in the wrong place. If you're feeling stressed out about your relationship or your marriage, maybe it's because you've got your trust in the wrong place. And you need to put your trust in someone who has been there in the past, who will be there today, and who is completely trustworthy with your future. That's where our trust has to be. And the only place to properly place your trust and my trust is in God. No other place. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says this: trust in the Lord with all your heart. If you're a note taker, write that word all down and circle it and underline it, whatever you do. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. You see, the reason you're stressed out in that area is because that stress has not been given over to God. I've not trusted God with all of my heart, only part of it. And the part that's got me stressed out, I'm still holding on to that for myself. And then he says, and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight, or he will show you which path you should take. So is there an area of your life this morning that you need to trust God with? Do you need to trust God with your work life? Do you need to trust God with your financial life? Do you need to trust God with your relational life? Do you need to trust God with your health? Or maybe there's some other area I haven't even touched on or mentioned this morning. But you say, pastors, I look at my life and I look at what's stressing me out, and I see specifically this morning, this is what it is. And that area of my life is where I need to trust God with. I need to give him all of my heart this morning. And if that's you, why not just say to God, God, I am handing this over to you. It's yours now. Doesn't it feel great when you can give something to somebody that you really didn't want anyway? It's yours now. God, I don't want this stress now. God, I don't want to carry these problems anymore. God, I don't want to carry this worry anymore about my life, about my finances, about my health. God, I am giving it to you this morning. And when you hand your stress over to God, God in return gives you back his best. We give him our worst, and yet he gives us his best back to us. And so for some of us here this morning, it may mean that we have to hand our life over to God. In church, we just simply say it this way: you need to become a Christian. That's what it means. You're carrying all kinds of stress and all kinds of worries. You're trying to figure out your life, and you look at your future, and your future looks dim and dark and dreary. Have you become a Christian? Have you given your life to Christ this morning? You may say, well, I believe in God and I believe in his son, Jesus Christ, but I've never asked him into my life. I've never given him my life. Then why not do that today? Why not allow him to come in and forgive your sins and give you a life of purpose to help you live now and also give you a home in heaven in the future? Why not give him your worst and then get the best back? Man, where else can you get a deal like that? God, I'm going to give you my worst. I'm going to give you my sins. I'm going to give you all the bad that I am. And I'm going to get a future in heaven. What a deal God gives us. Can I tell you this morning, this is for all of us. You can trust God completely. You can trust God with your finances. You can trust God with your career. You can trust God with your relationships. You can trust God with your future. And you can trust God with your eternity. And when you say, God, I'm giving it to you, I'm trading it, Lord, I'm going to give you my worst and I'm going to get your best back. When you do that, he will take you from a place of stress to a place of rest, according to Matthew. Or he will take you from a place of sin and he takes you to a place of forgiveness. He takes you from a life that has no purpose at all and he gives you a life of purpose when you trade the worst you have and the worst you are for the very best that he has. All you have to do is trust him this morning. Trust him. And if you'll trust him, you can stress less in your life. I'm going to ask you to do something today. I'm going to ask you just where you are, if you just bow your heads and close your eyes with me this morning. And as you think about your life and where you're at today, how much stress are you dealing with? For some of you, it is your finances. For some of you, it is your career. For others of you, it is your family. For some of you, it is a marriage. Some of you, it is your children. So maybe it is your health. You're stressed about your future. God says, give me your worst, and I'll give you my best. Maybe you're here this morning and you say, Pastor Atkins, I believe in God. I believe there is a God. I believe He had a son named Jesus. But I've never asked Him into my life. I haven't given Him my sins. I haven't given Him the worst that I am to receive His best, which is eternal life. And He wants me to have that. I know He does. But just haven't ever prayed that prayer. Maybe it's been a long time since you prayed that prayer. And when you were a child, maybe you prayed that prayer and you never developed that relationship, or you never continued it on. And you may need to rededicate your life to Christ this morning. And you say, I want to trade the stress of my life for eternity of hope and a future of hope. If that's you this morning, all you have to do is pray a simple prayer. You can pray it any way you want to pray it. It may be as simple as this. Dear Jesus, I am believing in you today. I am becoming your follower today. I want to live for you from this day forward. Thank you for forgiving me of my sins. I turn from my old way of living and I turn towards you. I pray this prayer in Jesus' name. If you prayed that prayer or a similar prayer this morning, a prayer that you've never prayed before, a prayer of rededication because you know that you need Christ in your life this morning, would you just slip up your hand just to acknowledge, and I won't call you out, but just say, yes, Pastor Atkins, I prayed that prayer this morning. I acknowledge this. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Yes. I see 2 hands that went up. Anyone else this morning? I just prayed that simple prayer.